An heir to a powerful family was forced to marry me. I got pregnant, and he tricked me into having the procedure. That wasn't the procedure. Robert only married you so you could donate bone marrow to his sister. Why would he care about you giving him a child? His first love, Victoria, told me the truth, her face full of mockery. I jumped from a high-rise building, but the high and mighty air collapsed. There was a new person in the house. Her name was Victoria, Robert's first love. At first, I didn't know what first love meant, so I went to ask Emily. A first love is someone my brother thinks about all the time, someone he can never quite reach. Now that she's back, you, the simpleton, will have to step aside obediently. An inexplicable fear arose in my heart, the fear of Robert being taken away. The day Robert went to the airport to pick up Victoria, I threw a fit, faking a stomachache to try and keep him. Forgive me, a simpleton, I really couldn't think of any clever methods. Even someone as astute as Robert was fooled by me for an hour. His suit was crumpled from my tugging, and his impeccably styled hair was a little messy. Until a call came in, and the girl on the other end sweetly called him Robert. Robert didn't have time to tidy his clothes that I had disarranged, and he rushed out the door. He usually paid the utmost attention to his appearance. I met Robert's legendary first love. She was very beautiful, in a white dress, with a gentle smile on her lips, like a fairy. But I didn't like her. They stood very close, and Robert's face also wore a rare smile. A perfect match. I thought of that word. Everyone said I was a terrible match for Robert. A simpleton, a golden boy of the elite. My marriage to Robert was orchestrated by Grandpa Robert. When my grandpa died, I was left alone and helpless. Grandpa Robert, to repay my family's kindness, held Robert's hand before he died and made him promise to marry me. My future was firmly bound to Robert. So, he married me, but not by choice. Because of this, I was very afraid of him when we first got married. People said Robert was ruthless, and my life would likely be miserable. But later, he cherished me, doted on me, proving many who had been watching and laughing wrong. From the moment Victoria appeared, that special affection was destined to no longer belong to me. I had never known how to hide my emotions. Immediately, with red eyes, I questioned Robert, "Don't you want me anymore?" That first love pursed her lips and chuckled softly, as if watching a child make a fool of herself. "Robert, she's quite cute. Even the little simpleton knows how to be jealous." Her tone was teasing yet gentle. I wanted to retort but didn't know what to say. Robert touched my head with a hint of helplessness. "I probably snapped at you this morning. I bought you a small cake. Don't be mad anymore, okay?" I took the cake listlessly and didn't say anything else. Emily liked her very much and specifically came back from the hospital. As soon as she saw her, Emily dramatically rushed over and hugged her. "Sister-in-law, if you hadn't come back, what if my brother really fell for that simpleton?" Victoria indulgently stroked her head. "Emily, she is your brother's wife. You mustn't say that." Married to Robert for 5 years, Emily had always called me a simpleton. She hated me, thinking I had ruined Robert's life. The day Grandpa Robert forced Robert to marry me, Victoria went abroad. Anyone with eyes knew what was going on. Because of that, besides calling me a simpleton, she would also call me a homewrecker. Robert had snapped at Emily once because of this, and that time Emily cried and screamed, cutting her wrist with a fruit knife. She had leukemia, and even a small cut would bleed uncontrollably. A wound that big could have killed her. After that incident, everyone in the Shin family resented me. Robert also deeply regretted snapping at his sister that time. She had called me a simpleton for 5 years, and everyone had gotten used to it. Victoria naturally stayed at the Shin estate. For the rare reunion, Aunt Eleanor personally cooked a large table of dishes to entertain her. I benefited from it. Actually, Aunt Eleanor used to be very fond of me. But I absolutely shouldn't have become Robert's wife. The Mrs. Shin absolutely could not be a simpleton. If I could do it over, I would definitely have refused this marriage when Grandpa Robert left his dying wish. I didn't want to be hated by everyone. Aunt Eleanor's dislike for me was as strong as her fondness for Victoria. The table was full of spicy dishes, with only a few milder ones in front of Emily. Emily playfully called out, "Oh, so now that the daughter-in-law is here, you don't want your own daughter anymore? Look at these dishes, TSK TSK TSK, Mom, you're so biased." Aunt Eleanor smiled and glared at Emily. "Of course not. Didn't someone specifically tell me what to make?" Victoria's cheeks flushed, and her eyes darted subtly towards Robert. "Robert, you still remember I love spicy food." Emily giggled and nudged her with her arm. "Of course. Who are you to a certain someone but their first love?" I turned my head to look at Robert's reaction. He paused while picking up food but didn't offer an explanation. A sense of indescribable disappointment welled up in my heart. With a table full of spicy dishes, I didn't know where to start and could only eat plain rice dryly. Robert got up, put some non-spicy dishes in a small bowl, and handed it to me. I was easy to please. But just as I took the bowl with a heart full of joy, Aunt Eleanor said, not too loudly, not too softly, "Rob, don't be so impolite. Eat if you can, and don't eat if you can't." The food I had just swallowed was stuck in my throat, neither going down nor coming back up. An awkward atmosphere permeated the air. I thought Aunt Eleanor was upset because I wasn't eating her food, so I quickly took a few bites. With a slightly ingratiating smile, I said, "Aunt Eleanor, it's very good. This meal, if I hadn't been there, they probably would have enjoyed it very much." Victoria's arrival made me feel increasingly redundant in the Shin family. She was gentle and beautiful and quickly won the affection of everyone in the family. Occasionally, I would hear the staff talking, "Miss Victoria and the master are such a perfect match, it's a shame." A shame that Robert had already married a simpleton. What's a shame? I heard the master is taking Miss Victoria to the company's annual party tomorrow. It'll be obvious who the real mistress of the house is at a glance. My hand, holding Lucky, tightened suddenly, making him meow in surprise. The staff dared not discuss further and quickly dispersed. Robert had never taken me to the company's annual party. I knew why. It was because I was a simpleton, not fit to be seen. I was also obedient and didn't dare to ask him to make it difficult for him. But tonight, for the first time, I asked if I could go with him tomorrow. Even though I knew in my heart that his feelings for me were just pity, I still morbidly wanted to verify who held more weight in his heart, Victoria or me. Robert had just showered. The stubble on his face was prickly, and he deliberately pressed his face against mine to kiss me. These days, he had been coming home very late every night, with a tired, bluish tint under his eyes. I was an early sleeper. In the past, no matter how busy he was, he would come home early to coax me to sleep. He would even read me those ridiculously childish fairy tales, and I never tired of listening. But now, those fairy tale books were covered in dust. Hearing my cautious question, he paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "No. I didn't throw a fit about not going, just let him hold me obediently." He reached past me and turned off the light. In the darkness, the tears I had been holding back for so long finally fell, soaking into the pillow, silent and unnoticed. They say a simpleton doesn't understand love, but Robert, I think I do now. Robert's unconditional favoritism over the past 5 years had made me greedy. He had personally watered the little flower in the desert. Without water, the flower would quickly wither. The night of the banquet, I smiled and waved goodbye to him. Robert was in a black suit, his hair neatly combed, every strand perfectly in place. He stroked my head and promised to bring me a small cake when he came back that night. If it were before, I might have looked forward to it all day because of that sentence. But I had become greedy. A small cake couldn't appease me anymore, Robert. I sat in front of the TV set, watching the live news broadcast of the banquet arrivals. Victoria, in a red dress, was radiant and bold, lightly holding Robert's arm, looking like a perfect couple. A reporter asked, "Are you two getting married soon?" "This is our private matter, not convenient to disclose." Victoria pushed the microphone away coldly and pulled Robert out of the swarm of reporters. That ambiguous statement left a lot of room for imagination for the reporters present. Robert, being pulled away, suddenly turned back and showed a faint smile towards the camera. This scene was captured by a reporter, and within 10 minutes, the news with the title "She's making a scene, he's just smiling" was all over social media. I dug out reports related to their relationship from 5 years ago, like a mouse in the gutter, spying on the evidence of their happiness. I finally realized that perhaps I should let Robert go. Mom always said I was born a trouble, not liked by anyone. When I was very young, my dad passed away. After Mom remarried, she had a little brother. I was naive and always secretly went to see her. That day I went to see her and saw my little brother in his CRA. He was very cute. I reached out to try and play with him but was unexpectedly pushed to the ground. A large patch of skin on my knee was scraped off. It hurt so much. My little brother's dad protectively held him and said to Mom with disgust, "Can you keep this simpleton daughter of yours away? She's nothing but trouble. What if she hurts our son?" I looked at Mom, at a loss. Mom smiled awkwardly and said, "Okay." When Grandpa George came to pick me up and saw the untreated scrape on my knee, he was furious and yelled at Mom. Mom cried hysterically at me, "Sarah, Mom is begging you. Please don't disturb my life anymore, okay?" Mom finally has a new family. Mom had a brother, and she didn't want me anymore. Robert had Victoria, and he didn't want me anymore. No one would like a simpleton, except Grandpa George, but Grandpa George was dead. There was no one left in the world who would love me. I was just a trouble that couldn't be shaken off. After Grandpa George died, no one was willing to take on the trouble that was me. It was Grandpa Robert who took me in, and later, he dumped the trouble onto Robert. I shouldn't have taken his right to happiness for granted. I wanted a divorce. Just as everyone wished, to make space for Victoria. The estate was empty and exceptionally quiet. My mobile phone rang several times. It was Robert. For some reason, I didn't want to answer. The black car Robert usually used was parked outside the gate. The driver said Robert had sent him to pick me up. Perhaps he felt soft-hearted, seeing my pitiful state. As soon as I got out of the car, I felt something was wrong. The driver dropped me off at the hotel entrance. In the past, even if I were to attend an event with the Shin family, I could only enter through a side door. Aunt Eleanor didn't allow me to walk with them, nor did she allow me to appear in front of the media. I was the Shin family's disgrace, something that couldn't see the light of day. I was SC. Arden wanted to get back in the car, but the car drove away first. Dense cameras seemed to have eyes, pointing directly at me and filming. Someone recognized me and exclaimed, "That looks like Robert's simpleton wife." This stirred up 1,000 waves. More reporters, carrying cameras, squeezed around me, constantly asking me pointed questions. "Don't you feel that you are not worthy of Robert? Today Mr. Shin is attending with his first love. I heard the Shin family is changing its mistress, is that true?" My ears were filled with voices full of mockery and malice, and I couldn't stop trembling. Someone pushed me, and I fell to the ground in embarrassment, scraping the palm of my hand. The cameras clicked and clicked, capturing my awkward state. I finally couldn't hold back and started crying, calling Robert's name helplessly. Robert's face was very grim when he arrived. I clutched his clothes tightly, shivering. "Didn't I tell you not to come? Why are you so disobedient?" I hadn't recovered from the shock yet. Hearing his words, I wanted to explain, but he interrupted impatiently, "Enough. I'll have the driver take you back." I silently let go of him. Victoria gently comforted him, "Don't be mad, Robert. Sarah is just a little playful. I'll take her around and introduce her to people later." Compared to her generous and radiant appearance, I looked even more like a joke. The blood dripping on the ground caught his attention to my injured hand. Robert was both angry and heartbroken, his expression softening. "Why didn't you tell me you were hurt?" I stepped back, hiding my injured hand behind me, avoiding his touch. "I'm fine. I'll go home right away. I won't stay here and embarrass myself." The vague glances in the hall burned in my heart like a fire, making me feel restless. Robert forcefully took me to the lounge to treat my wound. The heartache on his face didn't seem fake. A waiter brought a few plates of small cakes, all my favor. "Ite flavors." He coaxed me, saying the cakes would make the pain go away, while carefully treating the wound. Even after the bandage was applied, I didn't cry out in pain. Before, if I accidentally got a slight red mark from playing with Lucky, I would cry with red eyes and whine to Robert. Robert noticed something was wrong with me and felt a faint sense of unease in his heart. He held me in his arms and softly coaxed, "What's wrong? Are you scared?" I pulled out of his embrace, my hands nervously twisting the hem of my skirt, my head bowed as I apologized. "I'm sorry, I caused you trouble." He let out a sigh of relief and rubbed my head with a chuckle. "Sarah is not trouble at all. I want to go home." "Okay." I deliberately distanced myself from Robert, pushing him towards Victoria. Robert had already sacrificed too much for me, and I was willing to let them be together. On a mundane morning, there were only the three of us at the dining table. As usual, I made up a clumsy excuse to leave, giving them some time alone. But Robert followed me to the room and cornered me against the wall in frustration. "Sarah, you better explain yourself." I didn't understand. Wasn't this what he wanted? Why was he unhappy? Right, Robert was an extremely responsible person. He had promised Grandpa Robert he would marry me, and he would absolutely keep his word. Unless I left voluntarily, he would not choose to divorce me. So, it was up to me to break the delicate balance between the three of us. I took a deep breath and forced a smile that was uglier than crying. "Robert, when you two get married, please invite me and give me some wedding favors. I wish you happiness." Robert's face turned darker and darker. He was about to say something but was called away by Aunt Eleanor. Before he left, he pinched my cheek hard and instructed, "Wait for me obediently." In the study, Aunt Eleanor and Robert had a fierce argument. The study was very close to our room. I could hear their conversation clearly from the balcony. Aunt Eleanor wanted Robert to divorce me, but he refused. "Why are you so stubborn? It's not like we won't take care of her. We'll still provide for her even after the divorce. Isn't that good enough? Don't you know she's a disgrace to Shin Group? Who knows what kind of trouble she'll cause next time? You can't just let her cling to you like this, can you?" Robert's long silence was her only response. I don't know how long passed. My legs were numb from squatting before I heard Robert speak with difficulty. "Mom, she won't survive without me." That night Robert didn't come back to the room. I waited for him obediently all night. "Robert, you lied again." Since she couldn't get through to Robert, Aunt Eleanor came to find me. My foolish and clumsy reaction that day had been filmed by the media and widely spread online. She opened the comments section and showed it to me. It was full of vile insults. With red eyes, I lowered my head, not daring to look anymore. "I'm sorry." Aunt Eleanor softened her tone. "Sarah, Aunt Eleanor doesn't want to hurt you. It's just that your image has brought a lot of negative impact to Shin Group. Shin Group is a high-end luxury brand, and the mistress of the house cannot be a..." She paused for a moment, then continued. "Anyway, even after the divorce, Aunt Eleanor will still treat you like a daughter. The Shin family will still be your home. Please think about it carefully." "No need to think about it, Aunt Eleanor. I agree to the divorce." Aunt Eleanor was ecstatic and pulled me, saying good 3 times. She smiled and pulled me towards the kitchen. "Order whatever you want to eat, Aunt Eleanor will make it for you." I answered a few questions absent-mindedly and returned to my room. Even though I had been preparing myself to leave him, my heart still hurt so much. I curled up in the blanket. The corner of the blanket against my face was soaked with my tear. Lucky lay on top of my head, meowing. He was a little stray cat I had picked up. The first time I met him, he was limping and licking a plastic bag next to a trash can. His fur was all matted, and he was completely filthy. Robert said he must have been abandoned by his mother cat. My heart ached for him because he had a similar experience to me. I begged Robert to take him home and keep him. Robert had severe germophobia, but that day he personally held the dirty little stray cat, just because he was afraid I would get fleas from it. After taking the cat for a checkup and coming home, Robert showered several times, scrubbing his skin until it was red and covered in a rash. I held him and cried my heart out, and Robert couldn't coax me no matter what he did. More than a year later, the sickly kitten had grown into a 15-pound fat cat, pressing down on me so I could hardly breathe. I pulled him off and met his worried and confused big eyes. He was worried about me. I rested my head on his soft belly and murmured, "Baby, you'll stay with me forever, right?" Meow. The dinner table was unusually harmonious this time. Aunt Eleanor kept putting food on my plate. Robert thought his mother had come around and felt much more relaxed. Until Aunt Eleanor said, "I discussed your divorce with Sarah today, and she agreed." The smile on Robert's face disappeared. He stared at me intently. "Sarah, you want to divorce me?" I nodded silently. Crack! The bowl on the table was smashed into pieces by an enraged Robert. I had never seen him look so terrifying. I was so scared my face turned pale. Robert dragged me back to the room. He didn't control his strength. My wrist felt like it was about to be crushed. The sound of the door slamming shut behind me echoed loudly. I kept hitting his arm with my other hand, my voice choked with sobs. "Robert, let go of me, I'm scared." He threw me heavily onto the bed and leaned over me. "Sarah, how can you be so heartless? Do you know how much pressure I've been under to be with you?" Robert's eyes were bloodshot, and the veins on his forehead were throbbing. He was clearly furious. He bit my neck in frustration, from hard to gentle, deliberately drawing it out, wanting me to beg for mercy. "Still dare to talk about divorce? Admit you're wrong, and I'll let you go." But no matter how uncomfortable I was, I just gritted my teeth and said nothing. Robert finally realized that my talk of divorce wasn't just a moment of anger. Damn it! He kicked the wardrobe beside him fiercely. The wardrobe door swayed precariously. "You want a divorce? Never in your life. Sarah, you're too naive. Without me, without the Shin family, can you even survive? You're a simpleton who can't do anything. Besides relying on me, you have no other choice." I wanted to argue. Grandpa George left me a lot of money. I can paint, and I can cook, even though it's not very good. I wasn't a useless simpleton. But all the words stuck in my throat. The moment I saw Robert's slightly mocking gaze, they deflated like a balloon, and I couldn't say anything. Robert perfectly demonstrated the nature of a businessman. His words were sharp and pointed. He analyzed the cruelty of society to me one by one, proving that I, pampered and spoiled, would be completely devoured without the Shin family. He gave me a slap, then offered a sweet date. Finally, he rubbed my head and coaxed, "Sarah, isn't it better to stay by my side and be a carefree little princess?" I slapped his hand away fiercely. "Get lost. Robert, I hate you. I hate everyone in your family." I cried uncontrollably, and my stomach cramped with pain. Robert panicked. He held me and kept apologizing, pulling my hand to hit his face to vent. The pain in my stomach became more pronounced. I turned pale and collapsed into his arms. "Sarah, Sarah." Before I passed out, Robert called my name in a panicked and frightened voice. The smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils at the hospital. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Robert's bloodshot eyes. I was pregnant. Robert was very happy because he finally had a reason to tie me to his side. I hadn't spoken to him for days, but Robert had become more talkative. He even found some interesting storybooks to read to me. Online reports about Shin Group changing its mistress became increasingly intense. Robert personally clarified using the company's official account, a family of 3. The accompanying picture was of hands clasped together and an ultrasound report. Comments: "Wow, Mr. Shin and our little Victoria are having a baby? Congrats!" That simpleton finally stepped aside. As expected, when the ex cries, the current one loses. Robert frowned and replied to them, "Are you blind?" He childishly argued with the media outlets, presenting evidence of our love. The Shin Group CEO's childish behavior stunned a crowd of netizens. He showed me his mobile phone as if presenting a treasure. "They don't dare to talk about you anymore. Don't be angry, okay? Talk to me, please." I deliberately turned away from him, but I touched the baby in my belly. After thinking for a long time, I finally spoke. "Robert, isn't Victoria your first love?" Robert paused in peeling an apple. "No, they're talking nonsense. Then, can she not live with us anymore? I was extremely conflicted, twisting the hem of my clothes. I felt like a bad person. Robert met my hopeful and clear eyes and shifted his gaze uncomfortably. Don't overthink it. She's just a guest. My hopeful heart instantly plummeted. Robert was indeed a big liar. I would never believe you again. The doctor wanted me to stay in the hospital for the pregnancy. Emily was in the room next to mine. The day I was admitted, she even came over with her 4-drip. Hearing I was pregnant, she rolled her eyes. What good luck. Poor my brother, he'll have to spend his whole life with a simpleton. Robert looked at his sister's sallow face, tormented by illness, and couldn't bring himself to scold her. He told me not to argue with her because Emily was seriously ill. The doctor had given a final ultimatum: a bone marrow transplant surgery had to be done this week. But Emily's blood type was very rare, and a suitable match hadn't been found yet. Robert smoked on the balcony all night, the ground covered in cigarette butts. He kept looking at me, his eyes filled with a reluctance and conflict I couldn't understand. It wasn't until Victoria came to see me that I learned the cruel truth behind Robert's conflict these past few days. Robert only married you so you could donate bone marrow to his sister. Why would he care about a simpleton giving him a child? She was wearing a red tight dress, showcasing her good figure. Her red lips parted, saying heartbreaking words. What pregnancy care? He's scheduled you for the procedure. He's just waiting for you to donate bone marrow to his sister. I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. My first reaction was disbelief. Robert absolutely couldn't do that. She laughed at my foolishness. Robert is the most heartless person. He's not a good man at all. After she left, I waited for Robert in the room for a long time. He said he went to buy me lunch. I got out of bed and slowly walked outside, stopping in front of the doctor's office. Robert's voice came from the half-open door. Let's schedule the surgery for tomorrow morning. I hope Dr. Miller can keep it from her. Then came Aunt Eleanor's anxious voice. How soon after the procedure can she have the bone marrow transplant? I'm afraid Emily won't last. It was true. Everything Victoria said was true. I couldn't listen anymore, turned around, and ran back to the room. Because I ran too fast, my stomach started aching faintly again. Why, Robert, why would you do this to me? There were 2 more bodyguards at the door of the hospital room. Robe. RT asked me where I had run off to that morning, looking uneasy. I lowered my head and said that because I waited a long time and didn't see him come back, I went downstairs to wait for him. Robert subtly sighed in relief and coaxed me to eat. Looking at the 2 bodyguards standing like statues at the door, my heart had sunk to the bottom. Robert, you wouldn't lie to me, would you? Robert was focused on picking ginger slices out of the ribs for me. His hand holding the chopsticks paused for a moment. Silly girl, when have I ever lied to you? I took his hand and placed it on my lower abdomen. Our child was inside. Smiling naively and happily, I asked him, have you named the baby yet? Look, he'll start moving in a few months. Robert fled the room. The surgery proceeded as scheduled. Robert personally carried me onto the operating bed. I tightly gripped his hand, crying uncontrollably, Robert, I want to keep him, please. Robert turned his head away and cruelly let go of my hand. Be good, we can have another child. Robert, I hate you. I will never forgive you. I don't know how many days it had been. In any case, I hadn't spoken a word since the procedure. He wouldn't agree to a divorce. I tried to run away a few times, but he found me soon after. More people were stationed at the estate to keep an eye on me. I was trapped in a dark room. When the staff brought me food, they tried to persuade me, Mr. Shin is so good to you, don't argue with him anymore, or else. Sigh. I lifted my hand and knocked the food over, splattering sauce all over her. The next day, a different person brought me food. They all said I had gone mad. I resisted Robert's touch, and even when he entered my room, I cried and screamed for him to leave. He could only stand silently outside the door, talking to me on his own, staying there for a whole day. When he ran out of things to say, he would softly read fairy tales, just like before. The last time, he held me desperately, tears falling on my face. Sarah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. He hadn't come for days. Unconsciously, I stood by the window. It was raining heavily. Soon, my face was splashed with icy rain. The flowers in the garden downstairs had been moved into the greenhouse by the staff before the rain, leaving only a few lonely blades of grass enduring the wind and rain. Finally, they couldn't hold on and collapsed into the mud. Grandpa George, I miss you. I spread my arms wide. The whistling wind swept past my ears. My world became quiet. Emily was in the sterile ward, undergoing the bone marrow transplant. The doctor said everything went smoothly. Robert breathed a sigh of relief. He was about to rush home with a delicate small cake when he received a call from the landline phone at the estate. His unease grew infinitely. The moment he answered the call, a frantic voice came through. Sir, the madam jumped. The cake in his hand fell to the ground, a formless mess. He rushed home like a madman. He hated himself for being so careless. He knew her mental state was very poor after the procedure, so why did he leave her alone at home? The light in the operating room turned off. The moment the doctor told him the surgery was successful, Robert finally relaxed his stiff body, fell to his knees, and cried uncontrollably. I fell into a coma. The doctor said I might wake up soon, or perhaps never. Robert turned the hospital room into his office, staying by my side day and night. The day I woke up, Robert stared at me blankly for a long time, long enough for the porcelain bowl holding hot soup to scald his hands, leaving them covered in blisters. When he came to his senses, he rushed over and hugged me tightly, as if using all his strength. He had lost so much weight, his protruding bones were uncomfortable against me. Sarah, I've been waiting for you for so long. I thought you didn't want me anymore. I could feel his arms trembling slightly as he held me, even his voice was choked with sobs. I felt like I had a very long dream. In the dream, Grandpa George was there. Grandpa George wore his reading glasses, his fingers nimble as he sewed my toy rabbit that had come undone. When he finally finished, I cried because the crooked stitches made it look ugly. The old man was so anxious he jumped up and down, ordering hundreds of toy rabbits to be delivered, filling my room. He always sighed and said, "My dear girl, what will you do when Grandpa is gone?" Yes, Grandpa George, you're gone, and they all bullied me. So how could you bear to leave me? Grandpa George's figure became more and more blurred. In the last second, I heard Grandpa George calling out, Sarah, be strong and live. If anyone bothers you, go get 'em. I smiled through my tears. Grandpa George had a temper. If a passerby looked at me strangely, he would rush over and get into a fight with them. My personality was too soft, and Grandpa George tried to correct it, but every time he saw my pathetic little face, how could he be firm? This time, I would carry Grandpa George's hopes and live bravely. The first thing I did after waking up was firmly demand a divorce from Robert. Robert almost went mad. He frantically explained to me, "Are you still angry about Victoria? I've already sent her away. She won't bother us again." Before, I brought her home simply because she agreed to donate bone marrow to Emily. I froze. Didn't you marry me so I could donate bone marrow to Emily anytime? Robert's face darkened. In a flash of insight, he understood what Victoria had been planning. Emily urgently needed bone marrow. He couldn't just wait in line for a transplant but had used some unsavory means to find a suitable donor. Victoria was one of the few people who could donate bone marrow to Emily. The Shin family clung to her like a lifeline. His feelings for Victoria weren't good. They were college classmates, and the school had rumored T. Hey were a couple. But the truth was clear to Victoria. She had repeatedly spread rumors and even deliberately approached him when he was drunk. This completely enraged him. That very day, he had sent her to a slum abroad to fend for herself. How could Robert not understand this woman's intentions? He had tolerated a lot and turned a blind eye only for Emily's sake. But he had wronged Sarah, he had hurt Sarah. He was too arrogant, thinking that with his protection, Victoria couldn't cause any trouble. Sarah's emotions. They were just childlike moods, she'd be fine after some coaxing. Robert regretted it immensely, wishing he could kill Victoria right now to make amends to Sarah. She lied to you. At first, I married you out of responsibility. I thought I would never love anyone in my life, and what did it matter to take care of you forever? But later, I found my possessiveness towards you growing stronger. I realized I had fallen in love with you. I turned my head, avoiding his burning gaze. Robert held my hand urgently and with a hint of pleading, kneeling beside the bed. Sarah, you can hit me or scold me, just don't ignore me, okay? Did she tell you anything else? Don't worry, I'll make her pay for it. After thinking for a while, I still asked about the procedure. My voice trembled as I spoke. This incident had left a scar on my heart forever, impossible to erase. It wasn't that I wanted to forgive him, I just didn't want to misunderstand anyone. Robert said I had an ectopic pregnancy, and the baby had to be removed. He was worried I would make a fuss about keeping the baby, so he couldn't bear to tell me the truth. That day, after he finished talking to the doctor and came back, he saw me looking lost, with a smile uglier than crying, and thought I already knew, but he didn't expect me to misunderstand. Victoria had had the procedure some time before returning to the country, which was why I misunderstood. Knowing why I was so emotional. After the procedure, Robert's heart ached, and tears came to his eyes. Silly girl, why didn't you ask me? I was especially sensitive to other people's emotions. During that time, I sensed his impatience towards me, plus Emily was seriously ill, so how could I dare to pester him with questions? I had questioned him with my little emotions, but he just treated it as a childish mood, brushing it off with a promise to buy me a small cake. I didn't care about that anymore. Loving someone was too tiring. Grandpa George wanted me to be happy. I didn't want Robert anymore. What will you do after the divorce? I was a little angry. Robert, it's not like I can't live without you. I wasn't a pathetic creature who could only rely on him. I didn't need him as much as he thought. Robert's gaze was somewhat evasive. I got angry and stood by the window, threatening him. Do you want me to jump again? Even without Victoria, we wouldn't be happy, because you never treated me like a normal person. I don't want to be called a simpleton anymore. I don't want to be mocked for not being worthy of you. Do you understand? Being with you made me very unhappy. After my words fell, the room was silent for a long time. I don't know how long passed before Robert spoke with a hoarse voice. Okay, we'll get a divorce. Robert's hand trembled as he signed the divorce papers. Before leaving, he smiled and wished her happiness every day from now on. He didn't know how he got home. He drove in a daze, almost getting into an accident. When he arrived home, a few cheers erupted in Robert's lifeless world, and ribbons rained down on him. Congrats to my brother for being single again. The three people in the room were all happy. Although they felt a little guilty towards Sarah, they would make it up to her later. Robert had never thrown such a huge tantrum before. He smashed everything in the house he could, like a raging lion. Emily and his mom were stunned and dared not move. Robert stared intently at Victoria, one hand gripping her neck tightly, tightening his hold. To break up me and Sarah, you really used quite the scheme. Seeing that Victoria was about to pass out, the others quickly stepped forward to pull Robert away. Victoria fell to the ground, gasping for air, her heart filled with extreme hatred. Robert returned to the room. The wedding photo hanging by the bed stung his heart fiercely. Every detail in the room announced the former presence of the mistress of the house. He curled up in the spot where she usually slept, as if she were still there. These past few days, Robert had been cooped up in the room, drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Sometimes, when he was drunk and hazy, her figure would occasionally flash before his eyes. Sarah, you're here. Emily's hand was tightly held by her brother. She was helpless. Brother, wake up. Chin Group is in big trouble. The only response was Robert sometimes crying, sometimes laughing mutterings. Emily regretted it. If she had known Sarah was so important to her brother, she would have been nicer to her. Now that wretched Victoria had stolen Chin Group's confidential documents and sold them to a rival company, the company's stock had plummeted, and the capital chain was broken. She used to be young and ignorant, but she promised that if he and Sarah got back together, she would never cause trouble again. Sister-in-law, you are the kindest person. We lived together for 5 years after all. Can you help my brother, please? She even shook my hand and pleaded. I moved away from her as if I had seen a ghost, getting goosebumps all over. We are already divorced. I am not your sister-in-law, and I have no obligation to help you. I had told Jamie about our situation. She had disliked them for a long time. Hey, you two have some nerve, don't you? Just flapping your mouths and wanting Miss Sarah to help you. Have you forgotten how you treated her If you want to borrow money, show some sincerity. First, kneel down and beg, and let me hear those foreheads hit the ground. Emily's face turned red with anger. Just as she was about to lash out, Aunt Eleanor stopped her. Her legs trembled as she slowly knelt down, tears streaming down her face. Okay, Aunt Eleanor will kneel down and apologize to you. Jamie cursed and pulled me away quickly. You can't let her actually kneel down and give her a chance for guilt tripping. Then, Jamie didn't let me see them anymore. She said she had a way to solve it. I pulled back the curtains and saw Jamie carrying one person in each hand, throwing them outside the castle with astonishing strength. The news that Shin Group was facing bankruptcy couldn't be hidden. It was all over the internet. Some people even remembered Robert's simpleton wife. The post was pushed to the top and sparked quite a discussion. I heard they're divorced. Like rats fleeing a sinking ship. I remember the simpleton had a lot of her grandpa's inheritance, right? Why doesn't she help Shin Group? After all, the Shin family took her in for 5 years. Upstairs, idiot, haven't you changed your profile picture? Don't you know Victoria is a commercial spy and the fundamental reason for Shin Group's bankruptcy? I also always supported their divorce before. Compared to facing her mother-in-law's scorn every day and being mocked by netizens, getting divorced and living freely, spending hundreds of millions in assets however she wants, that's the life. What's money matter? Besides a true romantic like Mr. Shin, who would marry a simpleton? Those older single men might consider it. Is the commenter above's brain mat? Keyboard warrior. Look at your profile page, you're still raging helplessly because your boss paid you 200 less. You don't dare ask your boss, but you can't swallow your anger. Worry about yourself, ha ha ha. Jamie liked every comment that supported me, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She screenshotted the comments supporting me and showed them to me. Miss Sarah, so many people envy you. I glanced at them and smiled too. I no longer cared much about netizens' comments. What made me happy was having Jamie stand unconditionally by my side. Lucky, not to be outdone, squeezed into my arms and showed his soft belly, purring cutely. Meow oh, and Lucky. Grandpa George, I'm very happy now. End.